All right, welcome to the Golf Coach Podcast. Dom, how you going, brother?
Good, Toby. Good to be back. Episode 1. Now here we are. How far in?
I know.
And,
Actually, I think we're
Good, mate.
episode 31, I think.
There you go.
It's actually, so Dom was my first guest on the podcast when I was living over in Bali at that time. But I tell you, it's actually a lot harder to keep momentum going with podcasts. You know, like 90% of podcasts, Dom, stop at the 10th episode.
There you go.
It's difficult and
How well have
challenging.
you done?
Sorry?
How well have you done? You've had some great guests on. Like, I listen to a lot of your pods, and yeah, it's always intriguing, interesting, mate. You've done a really good job.
Mate, you're a good man. You're always full of nice words. I actually got off the phone with you the other day, and you're a good guy. I think people need to understand that Dom is a legend, and you make me feel good. You make me feel good. And I got off the phone call and I thought, man, my day's going to be a good day. I'm like, I should call Dom every morning.
Please do. Please do. Thank you.
No, it's true. It's really true. You know, it's always inspiring talking to you as well. But how are things? How are the girls, mate?
Yeah, life's good. I mean, I think that's everything. If life's good and you enjoy what you do every day, it's hard not to be happy. And if you're happy doing what you're doing, I think that that rubs off on people. I guess that's I'm in a really good place in my life. I'm probably travelling a little bit too much for my liking with where I'm at with my family. My daughters are nearly 16 and finishing year 10 and into year 11 and 12 next year. So, I'd like to cut down a little bit on the travel over the next few years. But, it's what I love doing. I love coaching. I love helping people, especially on the tours, the good players. You can change their life. You can really establish a player on a tour for the next 10 years. And I'm talking, say, a Karis Davidson at the moment, really forging herself into that, full status LPGA tour for next year. And, that the changes that creates for her, she'll move to the States and set herself up. And, once she's on that tour, I really believe she'll spend 10, 15 years on, fully on the LPGA tour. And to think that, over the last couple of years, I've helped her do that in such a great manner is so fulfilling to me. And, it's hard not to want to go. I'm leaving in 2 weeks to spend another 2 weeks with her on the LPGA tour. And I love doing it because, it's sort of what I did with Herbie, sort of 18, 19 in Europe, and look where he's now. So it's what we love doing as coaches is just getting those great players, good people into, good places in their lives.
It's always a conversation I've had with you, and you can see that you've got that real passion. And I guess when you talk about working with good players, but people talk about wanting to work with good players, but to me, when I hear you talk, right, it's like you want to help people, you want to help them set up their lives, essentially. Like you're trying to get these guys playing careers going, and that kind of gets you that burning desire as well, like winning trophies and all that's exciting, but having the opportunity and what you've been able to do is taking someone from, one level of golfer and then helping them provide for their family. It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, and I look at myself not just as a swing coach. I've been doing this long enough to know that you can get someone swinging it better.
Yeah.
But that's half of it. It's an important part of being a better player and creating success. But there's so much more to forging a career on a tour somewhere on the world than swinging the golf club really well. And, my role with all my players is much more than just swinging a golf club. I'm so invested in them, so passionate about everything they do within their lives and whether it's scheduling, creating a really good team around themselves, getting them to understand, what they've got to do physically, working with their families, their friends, their parents, whoever it is, to educate them around this is what we need to get to the level we're trying to achieve. It's not just swing the golf club better. And, I think there's a real art to that. And I think, it's something I really enjoy and put a lot of time and effort into with all my players.
Yeah, and that transition is massive. Like we've heard about that transition amongst players, haven't we? Like I had you and Porter on the podcast as well, who potentially discussed how that was a bit of a challenge as well. Like moving, us moving from Australia to the US, and then back in the day as well. Like even Greg Chalmers was talking about it, about how they used to have phones at the tour events that he was allowed to use every Sunday to call his family. So he had to pick up the home phone and call his family back home just on Sundays. Like it's a crazy difficult transition, isn't it?
Yeah, and the longer and the more time I spend out on tour with the variety of players I work with, I just, I don't want to put it down on it. It's brutal. It's so tough tour life. There's so many challenges in what they're doing. We sit back here in Australia and we see the scores and think, oh, these guys, what a life they're having, these girls. It's just the reality is not that. As you say, it's hotel room to hotel room. It's on the golf course, off the golf course. Go and eat dinner with your golf friends. There's not much outside of that. One of the big things I work with my juniors is to give them a real interest, a real purpose to life other than golf, because otherwise golf's just they're so and so the golfer, not so and so the person. And I work a lot with parents around that. Love your daughter, love your son, not as so and so the golfer, but as your daughter, as your son, because they need that. Because you know what it's like, mate. That you miss cuts. It's part of the game. And you're lonely, you're the other side of the world. It's a different time zone to home. And if parents are ringing up, why'd you double bogey the 17th and miss by one? That's just, it's throwing, petrol on the fire.
Yeah.
But, if they ring up and just talk to them as I'm a parent who loves you and you're doing a great job as the person you are, and, we love and support you, it just makes such a difference. So, yeah, it's brutal. It's really hard out there, mate. And I see it. I've just come back. 3 weeks ago? I was over for 8 weeks with 3 players on different tours, and it was a tough trip. We didn't have the successes we wanted to, and there was various reasons for that. And there was some, really tough and hard conversations, and it wasn't all good. I'll tell you that.
It's and that's the thing with golf, right? And we all know, people listening to this, is that it's a lot more losses than there is wins, right? Like,
yeah, what do they say? 80% of what you make will be in 20% of the events you play.
I love that. So that's, and when you say that's what they say, that's the reality, right? Is that that's what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's not quite that with the elite, the top 5, 10 players, but I think once you get down off that peak of, those best players in the world, I think you'll find it's been the rule of thumb since I played many, many years ago, and I don't think it's changed too much.
Oh, mate, it's the same, us here just playing in like the Australian circuit, right? The Pro-Am circuit was like, it was tiered so heavily at like the top, even though it wasn't much money, but I think it was like 17% for the winner. And then by the time you got down, you weren't covering costs past 5th place. Like it was a challenge, right? So where did you go? Where was it? 6 or 8 weeks? Did you go? How long did you go for?
8 weeks, mate. I spent
8 weeks.
First 2 weeks in Sweden with Momoka Kabori on the Ladies European Tour.
And is she Kiwi, Momoka?
Yeah. Well, she was born in Japan, moved to New Zealand when she was 8, and she's lived in New Zealand since. So her brother's obviously doing really well, won the Australian Amateur.
Okay.
Family. She came through Let Access Tour last year, top 6 from Let Access, get onto the Ladies European Tour. And she's found it a fairly big jump, which you'd expect. It's her first year out on a main tour. She's playing quite nicely. She's retaining her card at this stage, but learning so much. Which it's the first time she's travelled the world on a main tour this year, and dealing with everything that goes with that. She's done a really nice job, but it's. There's been challenges around everything that she's done this year. Around her mental game, the belief, and she's put herself in some really nice positions. Going to the last round, and sort of hasn't carried that on. Got a little bit too involved in that rather than just the process of where she's going, what she's doing. So there's been challenges, but she's stepped into that. She's a great young girl. She was the one that a lot of the Australians might know through the Sandbelt last year. She lost to Cam Davis by a shot 15 under for 4 rounds around the Sandbelt, including, of course, at Royal Melbourne and Yarra Yarra. So she's an incredible talent, and she's doing well. She's I look at it with any of my players. Are they improving? Are they learning? Are they getting better? If you can sit back every 3 to 6 months and say, we're in a better place. We've learnt a lot over the last 3 to 6 months, and you keep doing that over a number of years, you're gonna achieve your goals. I've always said that about Lucas. With Lucas, since he was 13, 14 years old when I started working with him, and the same's with Momoka. We don't have to get on the LPGA tour next year. I say to her, if we're there in 3-4 years, are you going to be happy with that? She's like, absolutely. Okay, let's just it might happen in 2 years, but if it takes 4, that's okay. We've just got to keep ticking these boxes, getting better in these places, and that will happen for us.
Yeah, and just like doing the best you can do in the situation you're currently at, right? If you keep looking about what's next, and then you're not going to be able to kind of maximize your performance, to its full potential where you currently are at that time. It's kind of when you look at Momoka, do you think that, like you did with Herbie, like has she just got all the tools and you're just kind of getting her comfortable out there, or has she got work to do in certain areas, or?
Good question. Yeah, no, she hasn't. Like she's 5 foot nothing, maybe 3. She's not tall.
Yeah.
She's never really jumped in the gym. So, she doesn't, she's 215 yards carry off the tee.
Interesting.
So she's quite short.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot of work in that space. If she's going to play on the LPGA Tour, she needs to hit it 20, 30 yards further.
Yep.
But, she knows that, and she's working in that space, and she's already getting distance. Her wedge play, mate, is world class. But we keep a lot of stats on Up Game, and work with top boys on that. And the last Zoom, he's looking at sort of 75 to 125, and he's talking to us. You're better than any guy golfer in the world. Wow. She's that good, 75 to 125. So
that's unreal. She's
got great tools, great strengths. Her putting's getting better. Her iron play's getting better. She's starting to get some more distance. But I find that really exciting working with a girl. I've worked with her for over 12 months now, where I looked at her at the start and went, well, you're great around these things, but we can make such improvement in these other areas of you. So that's great as a coach to think, you haven't got all the tools, and Herbie never did. He didn't have them all at the start. He was a fairly poor putter when I started with him as a 13, 14-year-old. But to be able to work with these kids or young players and create improvements in areas of their game that they need to make improvements in to get to a better level's a lot of fun. That's, as a coach, that's what you want to try and work with them on.
Especially when you're someone who's like, you're talking not just world class, potentially the best in the world at wedge play. Can you tell me why? What's some strengths that she's got from that yardage, 75 to 125? Technique, imagination, shot selection.
She's fairly one-dimensional in that space.
Okay.
When I say one-dimensional, path, face to path, it's just so neutral.
Yeah.
And she controls the distance of the ball, the flight of the ball just so well. So, you just know it's going to land within 3 yards either side of the hole.
Yeah.
And because of a path and face to path, it's going to be within 3 yards left or right. So it's just, it's very simple.
Yeah.
But, I think we sort of try and teach that. You've got a wedge from 100. Let's just throw that dart. Yeah. Now, the rhythm's really good. You can break all those things that I've talked about there down. Why does she flight it so good? her ball strike from that distance is great. Her rhythm, her swing speed's just so, perfect from there. You can go on and on, but that's sort of detrimental to a driver swing, though.
Interesting.
In a lot of ways. Like she swings her driver a little bit the same. It's just very, controlled. And, you speak to her about her upbringing. I was sort of always taught as a junior to hit the fairway, hit it really straight, which I'm very much, I'm working with a 12 and a 14-year-old girl where I'm just giving them license, just smash it as hard as you can.
Yeah.
We'll go and find it, we'll straighten it up in years to come. So, she was brought up a little bit differently to that, and that's okay. We there's strengths to that, and some benefits to that, but we've got to try and change that mindset a little as we work. But as I said, I think that really helps her wedge play.
Well, there's no better case study than that's been public to us than Matthew Fitzpatrick. Like the work that he did with Dr. Sasha McKenzie, right? Where he even found, looking at his statistics, and I'm just paraphrasing a little bit here, that he was still 32nd in driving on tour, right? But he just wasn't far enough down there to compete. And the story goes that he was playing with Dustin Johnson or something like that, and he was like, I've just around Augusta, and he just played the golf course just totally different to the way Matthew did. That Matthew couldn't play it, and I've heard every time Dr. Sasha McKenzie gets on a podcast, I'll just type him in the podcast and try and find him, right, and listen to him talk about it. But when you talk about Momoka being so straight to a detriment, she could probably lose 20% in fairways and gain an extra 30 yards and be a much better golfer.
Yeah, and it's educating her around that, which is great in that space. She, as a coach, you create a lot of trust, but with upgrading the stats and things we have nowadays, you can back a lot of things up and show them, and when they see the data.
Yeah,
and she's got a idea. Where were we? She played the Aramco London on that 8-week trip. I spent a third week with her later on, and she's playing with girls who are 80 yards past her off the tee.
Yeah.
And it's a different golf game, and it's great seeing, if she can, on the whole, she can get it to that same sort of, if they can lay it up to the same spot. I mean, I just sit there, giving it this one, thinking, watch this, she's going to hit it to 8 feet, and she does, and the other girl's 28 feet, but there's so many opportunities or times where they're 80 yards in front and they're hitting wedges into greens, and she's got a 5 hybrid out. So, as I said, the exciting part is that these are all things like Matt Fitzpatrick that we can create gains on, create speed, create length, and as I said, it doesn't have to happen overnight. But if we chip away at it and get that speed up, over the next year, 2 years, it's going to be really exciting for her.
My friend Fabienne Albon, in Albon, she was on the podcast actually. She played on the Ladies European Tour and went to the Olympics. She talks a story when she first played with Laura Davies, and Fabienne's very short. Hopefully she's not listening to this, but she's short, right? She's very honest and open about it, right? She a powder puffer. It's probably we'd probably say in a nice way, right? Like she's okay with it. And she tells a story about how Laura Davies first played practice round with her, and they went to a par 3 or hitting a shot into a green, and Fabienne was hitting a hybrid and Laura Davies was hitting a 9-iron or a wedge. And she's like, when she was holding the club in her hand, she's like, I need all of this. And Laura's hit like a little hold off. Laura Davies hit a little hold off thing into there, and but I guess the one thing to kind of move on from that whole distance thing with Momoka as well is that it can put pressure. It can put a bit of mental pressure, I'm assuming, on someone's game, because they know there's only a limited amount of courses that they can really dominate at or play their best at. I remember when Gavin Coles, was it Gavin Coles or Peter Senior or someone, right? Got into the world Golf Championship event through winning the Australian PGA or something like that once, and he chose not to play in it and chose to play the Champions Tour that week because even though it was guaranteed money, but he just knew that the golf course that it was at, which I can't remember which one it was. I think it was actually one that you and Herbie went to once, but he just had no chance. He just knew that there was nothing he could do to compete at that tournament. And he's like, I only ever play to win. And he goes, I know when I go there, I cannot win.
And it's really interesting. I mean, I've had these discussions with Herbie over the years. We got to a stage a couple of years ago where we were looking at his schedule and we were sort of thinking, is it worth playing that week? Because you've got to hit it really straight off the tee. And we got to a stage, and I remember having a conversation with him, mate, we've got to do work on your game so that any golf course that we go to, we can compete. We can be world class.
Yeah.
And he's driven it really good. He's straightened up his game off the tee, and I feel that he's never been in a better place that any golf course he can go to, he can compete.
Yeah.
Now, looking at, as I said, it's been a tough first year for Momoka in a lot of ways on the Ladies European Tour because she's turned up at golf courses, never seen them, we don't know anything about them, and gone, oh, wow, this is going to be tough this week. And she's rung me and said, yeah, it's so long, like I'm hitting 3 woods into everything. And so next year, like we can start to schedule a little bit around, let's not play those 4 events, but play these ones because those golf courses are going to suit you a lot more. Now, ultimately, I want to get her to a stage where she can compete and play around any golf course in the world like Lucas can now.
Yeah.
But that's going to take some time. But that, as a coach, that's what we want to, get our players to be able to be world class at any golf course, any facility.
Yes. And so when your recent trip, which countries did you go to?
So Sweden the first 2 weeks with Momoka, and then I headed over to the US Open with Herbie at LA Country Club. Then I went to Boulders with Karis for the KPMG, the ladies major there, which was, that place was awesome. I really enjoyed that week, other than, and this is brutal, Karis, we turned up, we had practice rounds Monday, Tuesday. She was playing so beautifully. I'd never seen her swing it and play as good. And by sort of Tuesday night, I was so confident we're going to have a good week. Like I'm talking, we're ready to have top 10 in this major.
Yeah.
She rang me Wednesday and said, I'm just not feeling great. I'm going to sort of not come out in the morning. I'll see you there at lunchtime. She came out lunch, had some lunch, feeling no good. 10 minutes after lunch, she's like, I'm going home. I'm just not great. And I'm thinking, is this COVID? What is this? Her symptoms sounded a little not so good. Yeah, Thursday, we were first group off. She turns up. She goes, I haven't tested, but I'm not feeling great. I've got every COVID symptom. Yeah, she did a great job and shot 4 over or something. I think she had 14 pars, and it wasn't easy. Then I started feeling a bit crook that afternoon. I'm thinking, I know what this is. Yeah, sure enough, we both had COVID. The Friday, she was so sick. I can't believe she played. So, I mean, that was just brutal to swallow that, where she was playing so good early in the week. And then, we both came down with COVID by the end of that week. Didn't get a result, couldn't really do much because, she was particularly unwell. And then the next week, mate, I had a week off. And I was thinking, do I go home? And I thought, nah, haven't really spent much time in New York, KPMG in New Jersey. So I thought I'll hang out in New York, spent the whole week with COVID. So crook. And that was the 4th time I'd had it, and it was the worst I'd ever been with it. So that was week 4 of my 8-week trip, sort of in New York with COVID. And Karis was, obviously on a real downer after sort of, getting crook just before the event started. So, yeah, it's brutal. But you bounce back and, off you go to the next event.
Did you stay in Manhattan? Where'd you stay in New York?
No, in Manhattan. It was great. Like,
how good's Times Square?
Yeah, I mean, mate, I didn't do much for 3-4 days, and then I'd do one activity. Like the first day, I think I walked down to Times Square and just, it was a 20-minute walk, and I was exhausted. Like, went there, had a look for half an hour, and walked back to my apartment, and that was the day. I was done. So yeah, it was by the end of the week, I was getting to a baseball game and doing a few things, but yeah, the first 3-4 days was pretty quiet.
Wait, Times Square. When I first went there, I'll never forget so Times Square in New York or Manhattan. People listening probably, I'm sure most people know where it is, but it's just one of the most overwhelming experiences, isn't it, when you first get down there? I know you had COVID and you're feeling rough and that's shit, but when you see all the screens and the energy and the activity going on down there and the sirens, it is just on, isn't it?
Maddest place in the world. There is so much going on in that place. You just don't. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It's brutal.
So yeah, that was week 5, whatever. Then went to Orlando. Had a week with Karis and Lucas. He's just bought himself a place over there, so that's home for him now. So had a really nice week there with him, and then he went off to the Scottish Open, and I went to the Aramco with Momoka.
Okay.
And then finished up the trip at Liverpool for the Open Championship with Herbie. So back home. We didn't get many results on the trip, but it was all part of getting better and learning, and all those cliches, mate.
That's a lot on the road.
Too long.
How do you go eating healthy on the road that long?
Where's this video? Like, it cuts me off about here. Probably a good thing. Every time I go away, I put on weight, especially in America. It's so hard. I love my routine, mate. You know, when I'm home, I get up, go for a run, eat well. You know, it's just so different when you're out on the road. Routines are just gone, especially when you Europe to America, back to Europe. Your time zones are all over the place. Sweden, mate, was so weird. It got dark at 11:30 at night and it's light at 2:30 in the morning. So your sleep was I slept so poorly those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So you don't feel like exercising or doing anything. Oh, it's travels.
Yeah, because your circadian rhythm's all out then because you don't know when to go to your brain doesn't know when to go to sleep. Do you wear an eye mask?
I've got to start doing that. Yeah. I've got to, yeah.
I tell you what,
I
wear an eye mask. I did about 2 years ago, and it just revolutionised my sleep. And I'll tell you why I think it did as well, Dom. You know, I'm no sleep expert, but I think my brain just goes, oh, eye mask is on. It's time to go to sleep. You know, and you can't open your eyes. You can't. There's nothing to do, you know, and it really makes everything so dark. Yeah, I'm a big...
Right, you've got me onto it. I'm doing it.
Mate, my wife, she says to me all the time, she goes, I'm sick of helping you look for your eye mask every night. Because I get up in the morning and just kind of chase after the kids or whatever, and I kind of lose it. Tell me, how was at the Open with Herbie? It started raining, right? It was a bit wet.
Yeah, it was a great event. I mean, I loved that golf course. It's great links golf. I love links golf. And, you know, the conditions are they're changing all the time. We had a reasonable draw. He went out early and he was 3 under through 16. And he was on top of the leaderboard.
Oh, I know exactly what happened.
Good. We're playing nicely. He played really good.
Yeah.
Then hit 17th hole, mate, and Ripple made 6 and then made a good par down 18. So, you know, he shot even first round, but I think that really hurt him because... Yeah, he was shattered after that round. Because he played so much better than even par.
But let's put that into context, though, before you move on there, right? Like that triple bogey that Lucas made on 17th. That 17th hole copped a lot of criticism leading up to the event as well, didn't it? Like it was copping a bit of heat in regards to that. It was the par 3, I think. Was that the one that Trav got hole in one on?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it was the par 3 where they were showing people practicing out of that bunker on the right, and Herbie was stuck in there.
Yeah. I mean, and that was the first round. So it was interesting. The second morning, you see all the course stuff out there, and they're pushing the sand up to the faces a bit more. So when it rolls in the bunker, it rolled down a little bit more. But in that first round, it can be like 3 inches. Well, I think we saw, was it Rory on the 18th in the first round, and he's hit that shot off a knee, like because his ball hadn't rolled anywhere near or off the face. So actually adjusted the bunkers after that first round, but that didn't help Herbie on that 17th, that first round where, it just rolled right back against the face, couldn't get it out, you know. Just brutal.
So people listening to that as well, like the recreational golfer, you know, when you're raking a bunker, when you're pulling the sand to the edge of the bunker, you know, you're kind of making it real thick. And I guess the goal of we want to see most bunkers have a flat bottom where the ball can just roll into that surface area. And if you've got a lot of heavy sand around, then the ball can just get stuck and not roll in that right spot, right?
And it won't roll down off the faces, you know. And look, the bunkering in Australia is so different to that. And links golf, you know, we couldn't believe it. We turned up there and, you know, the walls are just straight down and then there's fluffy sand at the bottom, like that's not rolling anywhere. And I mean, in a way, I don't mind it. It's like that's the defense of that golf course. Don't hit it in the bunker. Yeah. You know, it's going to cost you a shot, 2 shots, and I don't mind that. That 17th hole, it's a good sized green, short shot back into the breeze. You miss the green, and there's a lot of luck involved then as to where your ball feeds into the bunker.
Yeah,
I don't know if I love that luck side of it. You know, you roll into the bunker and you just don't have a shot. You know, you're gone. And then, you know, you can get lucky if it rolls in and it's more in the middle of the bunker. You know, they're fine. But, 17, anywhere you missed that green, you were going to really struggle to make 4 and in some places even 5. So, that was that. As I said, I think Herbie just, that hurt him pretty bad. He just... which I get. And the next day he just came out and just tried to take too much on and just didn't work for him. You can't do that around a golf course like that. So, we struggled with the result that week.
It's interesting when I know. I watched it. I was actually going to text you when I saw that bunker on with Herbie. I didn't get to catch a lot of I felt the time zone was shit for me back here in Oz. I like to get up early. So it was kind of kicking off at 8 o'clock and, I think Origin and the Ashes was on. It was a really busy time on the TV. So, but the, a defense I used to always say to people when I used to work at a golf course, in the pro shop, was people would complain about a bunker, and I go, well, let's face it, right? You're not allowed to ground your club. So back in the days, they were called hazards, right? What are they called now? Penalty areas or whatever. I said, it's just like a hazard. If it had red posts around it, you wouldn't complain about a shit lie. You know what I mean? But we treat it the same as a hazard and take a drop out of there if you want. But anyways, we generally are used to these days to having some consistency in the bunkers for sure, some consistencies in there. So, did Herbie go on to make the cut?
No, he missed by a couple.
Oh, did he?
Which was, yeah. I mean, as I said, he just pushed. I think he felt like after that first round, he should have been a lot better, up the board than what he was, and I just felt watching the next day and even speaking to him, you can't take that golf course on. You've got to just get it to the right spots, be really patient, and he just, Herbie's become a lot better with that, but there's still times where he just chases a little bit too much. He's a gambling guy. That's his personality. He takes stuff on, and I don't mind that. When that's why he wins. He's won in Japan this year on the DP World Tour, and he's had some great results, some thirds in Dubai, third in Saudi. I mean, I'm not saying it's all or nothing for him, but that's his.
He's not scared to take risks, is what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like we might see some players warm up into, let's say kind of like T20, T15, T8. Herbie's like, MC Hammer, I don't care next week. I don't care if I MC again. I'm going for it. Happy, willing to take risks. We saw that in the first time he won on the DP World Tour. And is it Saudi Arabia?
Dubai, when he had that playoff and hit that 3-wood in the water. Rinsed that and then pitched it to a foot and then won again the playoff. I mean, he says to me at times like Scottish Open last year, I think he was on the leaderboard. He was 3 off the lead with 4 to play on the Friday, missed a cut. But he was just chasing, he doesn't care. He's like, I'm not here to finish 48. Don't care. I'm here to win the golf tournament.
The shot's there to be hit. He'll try and hit it.
And you know what? I don't mind that.
Hey, while we're on Herbie, right? One of the partners of the podcast is Back to Basics putting mirror. It's Pro Path putting mirror. It's a mirror that I use. I love it. Designed by Richard Woodhouse and Grant Field. Discount code is below TM15. It's 15% off. And the reason why I'm going to this segment now is because I think Australia is gifted with the 2 of the world's best putters in Cameron Smith and Lucas Herbert. Can you tell me in the Back to Basics putting segment here, what makes Herbie a good putter and what have you guys done to make him such a great putter?
Yeah, so he led stroke game putting last year on the PGA Tour.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I mean, a lot of people would have to say, well, that's the stat that makes you the best putter in the world. If you're leading the best tour in the world, US Tour, stroke game putting, I mean, you're doing something right. I think, and I've watched Cam, warm up with his mirror, and Herbie, we use some different sort of things, but we do use a mirror at times. But what these guys do, both of them, they start their putting routine every day with their fundamentals, right? And that's what Cam uses the mirror for. Are my eyes in the right place? Are my shoulders aligned?
Yep.
Is my face square to the target? We do similar things with Herbie. So every day you're just checking your fundamentals and tick, 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 everything's great. And then we get out of that technique mode of checking those things, get into performance mode, with some time on the putting green, and then they're out to play golf. And whether that's a tournament round or whether they're, working on a week off, doing some putting stuff, it's always checking the fundamentals first, make sure everything's really consistent. We know what good is with those 2 players.
Yeah.
We know when they putt good. this is your setup. This and we just got to make consistency with all that, and then the performance drills they both do, I think, is it's very similar what Cam and Lucas do within their putting, routines. And when I say routines, I mean day in, day out, week in, week out.
And I've heard you use this term before when I think you've used the term calibration. So like when I hear you say that, from the outside looking in and just listening to you talk about that, then it's kind of like when Herbie gets to the putting green, he checks that things are aligned and he's calibrated, and it's not only a sense of technically we're good. It's like, okay, great, I'm on. Like I'm locked in. I'm all target. Like there's no sense of doubt there. It's kind of like, okay, great, everything's aligned, everything's good, and it frees him up to hit the putts he wants to hit, right?
So I talk a lot with all my players, and for the recreational golfer, you'll hear me talk a lot about internal and external. So internal is very technique based. So these guys get to the putting green, and the first 10, 15 minutes, they're doing a lot of internal work on their technique. They're not worrying about result. They're not out at the hole. They're not seeing the ball go in the hole. They're just very internal, looking down at their fundamentals, calibrating those fundamentals. Once that's done, the putting mirror goes, the putting mat goes, whatever is, put that all away. Now they've calibrated those, the fundamentals with their putting stroke. Now everything's absolutely external, so external. Yeah. So all they're doing is seeing the speed of the ball going into the hole, and they know that their strokes, perfect and calibrated to be able to do that in a really good manner.
I love that. So when you say external, it's kind of it's all about ball and target, and I guess trying to get their feel in from there, right? So they're trying to get the feel of the greens.
You hear Tiger. I mean, I love that clip where Tiger's talking about Pops. Pops used to say to me, take a picture, take a photo, and then putt to the picture. And that's just totally external. Even when he's coming back and his eyes are over the golf ball, he's still seeing the picture. He's still seeing externally out to the hole, and then he's just making that stroke to match the picture or to match what he knows is out to the hole. That's what I mean by external, And best putters, you watched Cam on 17 last year at St Andrews when he held that par putt and went on won the Open. I mean, I love watching him on that 17th. He's holding, a 12, 15 footer. His eyes, his eyes are out of the hole, like the whole time. Yeah. It's just incredible, for any of the listeners, that want to understand what I mean by external. Go to YouTube, find Cam holding that putt, and you'll just see he's not even thinking down at the ball, at his feet, at his technique in any way. Yep. He knows that his technique's good, and then he's just seeing that putt go in the hole. He's so external with that putt, and hits such a great putt. Has such an ability to match his speed with the line he's chosen because he is so external.
I love that. And I tell you, you know what, Dom? I reckon that majority of people who are non-golfers would approach it the same. So if you gave a non-golfer a ball and a putter and said, I want you to putt this ball up to that hole up there and get it in, they're looking what they want that ball. They're looking at the undulations. They're not thinking about technique. Well, as golfers, we start to think too much technique, right?
I was going to say, the recreational golfer, all they're thinking about, they're watching the putter head go back.
I know.
It's so internal. And I use the example of, if you and I were standing 5 yards apart from each other and I said, let's just throw a ball back and forth from you to I. I mean, we're not watching our hand and thinking of where we're releasing that ball from. Like, we're looking at each other front ball. It's instinctively, we're so much better to do that. We're external. We're just like, how do I know to throw it 5 yards, not 3 yards or 10 yards?
Yeah.
I'm looking at you. I'm actually athletically doing that movement.
Mate, it's what we talk about all day, right? It's what we talk about all day. Like, people ask that question, what do I do to chip it a little bit further? I'm like, what do you tell your daughter when she asks you she wants to throw the ball a little bit further? just just fucking throw it further. Maybe without swearing. but but no, it's interesting. I really love that, right? Tell me I want to know about the importance of striking putting. Like, do you think people we could train strike more? Like Tiger uses the T drill, which is the T outside the toe and on the heel.
Wow, you've opened a can of worms. So, mate, I've had for a while the new Capto 2.0. Don't know where you're at with Capto,
No, no, I
and
think you got that actually.
yeah, and I'm going through because it's a new model. I've spoken to Francesco. I said I want to do the training again. So I'm level 1, level 2 Capto putting.
Yep.
But with the new one, I went right. No, I want to do this again. So when I'm home, here's what I do, mate. I can't just sit still. I've spent 50 hours since I've been home the last 3 weeks just going through all the videos, all the online learning. The stuff that they talk about around tempo, the 2-1, I just think that's so important, that the rhythm of the putting stroke. And when I look at Herbie and, the best putters in the world, their tempo, the softness of that strike is just so important, that they're not accelerating through the ball, that it's just the acceleration is stopped and it's just, going through just so softly and, just rolling the ball so pure to the speed that they're trying to do, to create. So for me, around strike with putter, I just think tempo is everything. Speed control with putting. We've talked about calibration of, alignment and, face to path, really important. But you can do that perfectly. You're not going to hold many putts.
Yeah.
If from 8 feet, and it's just outside right edge, if you're not matching that starting line with your speed, I mean, you're not holding many putts. And that's where, like Herbie, when he's putting really well, his speed control is so good. Like, I know he's holding putts. You get him inside 10 feet and his speed control is so good. It's just like, mate, pick it up, put it in your pocket. You can have that. But when he's not quite holding putts, he's hitting the edge of the hole and, his speed control's just not quite on.
Yeah.
His rhythm, his tempo's not quite there. So we go back often to that, and it's interesting, talking about Herbie second round at the Open this year, and I said he was really a bit chasey and trying to create, make a score. The biggest thing I saw on the greens was he was just getting a fraction hitty, 10% more hitty, and that just throws his speed out enough for him just to roll it over the edge, not quite go in. It's not as if his technique's really poor. And that's more a mental thing. He's nearly trying too hard to hold the putt.
Yeah.
Gets a fraction hitty. So when we talk about strike with putting and, to your listeners, particularly recreational golfers, just that softness of that putting stroke and that consistency of being able to hit, the ball not just on the line that you intend, but at the speed that you've read that putt with is just so, so important.
It's yes. Can you explain to us tempo? Like we hear it a lot, right? I'm not going to use it as a buzzword, but it's something that we talk about. When you did the studies with Capto and you're hearing this 2-1, can you go into a little bit more detail around tempo and 2-1 and what these measurement points are?
Yeah, so if your backswing is... So we talk about in putting, and there's been a lot of studies done. I've just researched a lot of this over the last couple of days. So let's say your putting stroke should take 1 second, right? Your backswing is 33.33 of a second, and then from there all the way to the finish is 0.67.
Okay.
So that's the correct tempo of a putting stroke. So you look at a Cam or a Lucas, they're always going to be very close to that. If you're 1.1 second for your putting stroke, that's going to be more 37 to 72, but it's always going to match up as 2-1.
Okay.
Do you follow that?
Yes. I follow it. Yeah, I do. I've heard of the measurements and use like metronomes, and things like this to try and help find a beat or whatever. But I've been doing this study with don't actually know if I can say it, this 3D based German software kind of new app thing, and I've been running through some stuff with that and learning with that, and they talk about the importance of that in the full swing as well. Like the importance of being that way as well. And it's something
Yeah.
I've never really measured.
See, full swing, I don't talk rhythm and timing and tempo full swing. I use the word sequence a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, sequence means that everything is moving through impact in the right order, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So there's so many different tempos in a golf swing.
Yeah.
You look at, Freddie Couples, Ernie Els, these sort of real soft, slow tempos. And then there's guys that just absolutely crush it, So the tempo or the timing of the rhythm is quite different for, extremes for golfers. But what you'll see with both levels is that their sequence is matching up.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
I mean, with a full swing, I look at it more as doesn't matter too much the speed that you're going about what you're doing. It's more the sequence or the the things moving in the right order to get through impact.
Yeah. Yes. I yes. And in a way that I could possibly put it as well is when things get out of sequence with some of the players that I work with, it might be like, in very simple terms, that the arms are falling behind in the downswing, or the arms are going too fast in front of and the body's stalling, this type of stuff. And we see pressures and weight and where it's moving can kind of cause that sequence to go as well. Like if we're stalling in our laterals, going sideways, back and forth, or whatever. But that brings us to the end of the putting segment anyway. Back to basics putting mirrors, ProPath putting mirror, designed by Granfield and Richard Woodhouse. If you want to calibrate your putting, I use it every day. I have all my players using it, honestly. Code is TM15 down below, and they ship worldwide. I truly believe in it. And tell you what I like about the putting mirror as well before we move on, and I started using this well before they became partners of the podcast, was that it tells you how your putting stroke should look done from above. So you've got an opportunity there to have a pretty good understanding of a nice blueprint when someone can film it. You don't need, I'm not saying you don't need a cap there, but you get a very good understanding and some really good information provided back to you pretty quickly. When you look at a putting stroke just bare bones without anything underneath or anything measuring it, it's very difficult, in my opinion, to quantify it, to see if it's moving how you want it to move.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the biggest myth in putting, I've had good players tell me that the putter should go straight back and through. And, with that back to basics putting mirror, I mean, I love that there's an arc on it that sort of shows that, and even then the lines that show you face to path.
I tell you what, and people want to hear about why straight back and straight through is so bad, right? Is it can create like a negative effect through the hitting area. Like if you're trying to take it straight back, right, you're more likely you're gonna end up shutting the club face to the path, right? Because you're straight. You can't keep it putter face square. So you're coming through the golf ball, you're gonna be twisting your forearms in the opposite manner to try and keep it open, because you might be able to take the putter on a relatively straight back, but you can't keep the face straight to it, if people are understanding that. So the putter can move back straight, kind of, but you can't keep the putter face squared. So then you come through the ball and you end up twisting your forearms in the opposite manner, and it's got nightmare written all over it.
Well, the only way you can do that is if your hands move back relative to the putt. So if you putt like that, you can take it straight back and through.
Like one unit.
If you want to keep your hands pretty quiet and as a pendulum, don't start me.
Hey, tell me, when you're talking about Herbie there, right, you kind of triggered a memory, and you said he's a bit of a gambling man. Have you been having any side bets with him? So people listen to the podcast back when Dom was on first episode 1, where Dom bet Herbie. What was the bet again?
We've always, for years, like, my spice tolerance hasn't been good. So there's always bets around if I can do this, or if if I hole 3 in a row or whatever, you've got to eat a chili. I haven't had one since I've been on the pod. I've got smarter, mate. I've said to him, yeah, I'll eat a chili, but it goes on from that. So, yeah, I'll eat a chili, but if you don't do it, you've got to do this for me. And he's sort of, he doesn't take the bets as much anymore. So I've got a little smarter with it.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. I'll never forget when you told me that. It just cracked me up. That just absolutely cracked me. It's actually pinned to the top of my Instagram page. If you want to go watch the clip, you can TM Golf Instagram page and you'll see Dom talking about the bet there. I mentioned some things to you. I wanted to talk to you before, we started the podcast, right? And it is a very, very difficult and kind of broad topic. What did you see? Like, is there anything that you can kind of list and share with us that potentially the tour player values more than the recreational golfer in their golf game? Because let's just say that generally recreational golfers get caught up in technique, and the tour player, might understand that, like calibrating their putting before. Is this all they need to do, and they can get external? Is there anything you've kind of got off the top of your head that you can think of?
Couple of things. I mean, when you look at a recreational golfer, I mean, their competency around fundamentals, around technique, isn't what a tour player's is. So, yeah, they need to do more work in that space. So, I understand that if you're playing on a USPGA tour, your competency around a lot of the fundamentals of the game, you've built that over numerous years. So we need to check in with those fundamentals, but then, we get external and do a lot of performance work, where if you've got a 23 handicapper, I mean, the reason he's off 23 is a lot of the reason is because his fundamentals aren't great. So 100%. He's got to do work on those fundamentals.
Yeah.
But to get some right advice and to do the necessary work to improve those fundamentals. So, but I think when I look at, I mean, my elite players and I'm not going to say, good level amateurs that I work with, scratch markers wanting to play professionally in a year or two, I see what they do on a daily basis and I'm trying to teach my elite amateurs that your practice needs such a purpose. I see there's a big downfall there with elite players who aren't at that high level yet, is that they turn up and they do 6 hours, 8 hours at the golf course for a day, and you just sometimes think, what have you really achieved today? What did you go to that golf course with as a purpose at the start of the day? And have you really achieved that? Have you ticked off the boxes we need to? What I see with, Karis Momoka, Jake Hennessy, the Lucas Herbert, the elite players I work with who are on tours around the world, they turn up, even on a week off. We've got a week off. Well, it's not a week off, a training week day. And it's like we sit there on the Monday and go, right, what do we want to do this week? What do we want to achieve this week? And we make a plan. And it's like, right, we're going to get pitching. We're going to do some work on your pitching. This is what it's going to look like. This is what we're going to try and do. We're going to improve fundamentals. Then we're going to do a lot of work on, the flight, the launch. We've got to get that launch between 25 and 30 every time. We're going to work on that. And then we're going to work on speed control. So there's a whole plan of what we're going to do within the pitching frame that week. And then we're just going to get to work on it. And it's not about doing a heap of work. It might be 45 minutes one day, but geez, we've killed it in that 45 minutes. The work we've done, the intensity of what we've done is just absolutely world class, and we've seen improvements there. Whereas, your scratch golfer who, has got a week, it might be a school kid, 17-year-old kid, and he's got 2 weeks school holidays, and he goes down the golf club every day, and I want to get better. And I practiced, I was there for 8 hours a day. But did you get better in that 2 weeks? Did you just play too much golf with your mates because that's good fun? We had putting comps. I did a lot of pitching in that first week, but what were you trying to achieve with your pitching? What did you actually improve your pitching? What was your plan? So That's probably the biggest difference I see in elite world class players and the next run down is they don't tick the boxes. They don't have such a plan. They just don't do it as well as the best players in the world.
I can't. Yeah, mate. I echo it. I echo everything you say, because when you talk about that, how hard is it? Like it's sometimes it's like pulling hen's teeth trying to convince the players that want to turn pro how important it is to freaking prepare properly, like your week, and organize your practice schedule, even for that matter of fact. Like people are too reactive in their oh shit, I putted bad this week, so I'm going to practice my putting this week, and then all of a sudden they neglect another area of their game. They go around in circles. Like I had one of my students. This is no word of a lie. He's an online student. Jake. He qualifying for the US Amateur, and he missed qualifying by one or two, and he had 7 3 putts over the 2 days. He led the ball striking stats both days. And I just said to him, like, how's the putting plan going? And he's like, how's your practice plan? I've got a full practice plan for him. I got a 17-page PDF file that all my students have access to. And he's like, oh, I was just kind of doing this and doing that. And I was like, for the last 2 weeks, I'm like, so you're telling me if you actually stuck to your schedule, did your drills, you'd be playing USAN this week? And I had to be honest with him. I had to tell him, I was like, mate, you would be playing USAN this week if you did this, if you stuck to the schedule. And it's a true story. But when you talk about to even cross-reference into your fundamentals that you mentioned there, Dom, is I had a lesson yesterday with a guy, and I get all those rubber grip grips. Right, this is the beginner golfer, 25 handicap golfer or whatever. Beautiful body pivot, as a lot of these athletes do. And he's gripping the club like his left hand's all the way over. He can see all 5 knuckles. His left shoulder's all the way turned over. His right hand's underneath, and he's just hitting it left for days, right? And I said to him, Scotty Scheffler, the world's best golfer, he watches golf. I said, number 1 golfer in the world uses one of these every day. And he goes, does he? I'm like, yes. I said, so does Xander Schauffele. Oh, and when you talk about the fundamentals, I truly believe if everyone had sound fundamentals, everyone should be better than 18 handicap.
Yeah, totally agree. And mate, listening to you talk about that guy, US Amateur, that frustrates me because he's been you have educated him. He knows. What I see a lot with these elite players is when I start working with them, I'm like, well, they don't know that that's what they've got to do. So I cut them some slack. I'm like, well, no one's taught them. And if I could say one thing to the golf coaches listening to this podcast, it's educate your players around this sort of thing. So, and I touched on it earlier, I'm not just a swing coach. I've got to, and I think too many golf pros just teach, they turn up, here's your hour lesson, this is how you got to swing, this is what you'll do, all right, see you in a week, see you 2 weeks, whatever it is.
Yep.
But our role is to educate the players like you have with this kid that this is what you've got to do to become really good with your putting. And our role as golf professionals is to educate our players in not just how to swing a golf club, but to how to practice, how to structure a week that they're working on their game. How do you work on your game? What do you need to do? So I think, that it's a big thing for me is a lot of players just don't know. I get new students and I look at them, and I've discussed with them for a long time, where they're at. It's just find out what they know, what they don't know. And 9 times out of 10, they just don't know what they're trying to achieve to get to that better level. And I think that's where, as a golf professional, we've got to understand that's our role.
Yes, and yeah, it's so true. And so what our job is to do as well is that, we've got to convince these people, which is hard. You know what I mean? Like, it's not out there, or it's not on YouTube. Collect these stats and work out your differences between your dispersion from 75 to 100 yards, and you could lose 1 shot off your handicap. It's all about fucking flex your right wrist this way, extend your right wrist, and put this on, and you're going to win $1 million. And so it's kind of like what we're seeing out there is it's just not promoted properly. And I had a guy yesterday come up to me, and I teach this guy yesterday, and he used the draw more circles. So I'm there as a golf coach as him, so I can see all his stats go in and his practice goes in. He's a retiree. He's a 7 handicap golfer. He uses statistics. He showed up yesterday with this piece of paper that shows on if he hits a 3/4 nine iron, a full pitching wedge. He's got all the yardages written down for inside 130 on 3 different shots that he can play for each one. And he uses the Draw More Circles app and he identifies where he needs to get better. I'm telling you right now, this guy, he's 7. He'd be listening to this. He hits it probably just like any other 12 handicap golfer out there. But the only reason he is 5 shots better is because of his diligent, and he knows that he needs to work on his putting between 7 and 21 feet. He knows that he, needs to work on these certain types of aspects of his golf game that we're working on, and that's how he's getting better. It's nothing to do with skill. Fucking nothing. This guy hits it like any 12 handicap golfer. He just got the most out of his game. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw that on Instagram this morning.
Yes.
I saw his little yardage notes, and I loved it. I thought, yeah, that's good. But I mean, again, who's educated him? How does he know this stuff? Because that's the goal. That's the key. That some people just don't get it. And I say to so many people, like, how many players between the age of 17, or even like 12 and 20 years old want to make a living out of golf in the world today? Like, let's say there's 100,000. Like, there are so many.
More, yeah.
The reality is, how many are going to do that? Like, it's 200.
There's not many spots.
100.
100.
So what's going to make you stand out in that 100 out of 100,000? Like, you have to think of that way. Like, to that player who's between the age of 12 and 18, 20, whatever, and wants to make a living out of the game, you got to be in the top 100 of that 100,000. What are you going to do better? What are you going to do differently? How are you going to educate yourself or be educated to be able to do that? Because that's your reality.
Yeah, and there is not going to be any more John Daly's. And when I mean that in a polite way, nothing to do with his body shape, but you can't fluff your way through that anymore and rely on skill. You're going to need to have freaking everything, because I could tell you what you mentioned there, which I think is a really good way of looking at it. I've never thought of that. Is that out of those 100 people who make it out at 100,000, I don't reckon that's particularly the 100 best ball strikers.
Nah, they're not. They're not.
Yeah.
You might get a couple, like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
We've all seen them, mate, over the years. Like, they're a. It's not even the. Yeah, it's not the 100 that are the most athletic or gifted or like. Yeah, it's just they get it. They've educated themselves. They've worked hard. They're just ticking all the boxes. They're crossing the T's, dotting the I's.
Yeah.
It's so much involved in making it into that top 100. There are so many aspects, and so many of these people are thinking it's their golf swing.
Yeah.
That's like just 5% of it.
Oh, I love it. I love that. I really like the way you kind of looked at it, and it's a really good way of putting it to people. And I'm going to use that line next time I talk to a player or I'm talking to their parents who want to do that, because it's, and if you feel like you're not good in this area, you get someone to help you. Like, I've been talking to Craig Dixon, who from Draw More Circles, who's coming on the podcast as well, a data scientist, right? And he manages like 20 of the world's best players now, just their data, because he can get it collected through ShotLink and stuff on PGA Tour app. So he's getting all their data from the course. So some of the stuff that's getting produced out there now in AI, it's incredible. Like, Draw More Circles now, what it does, and I use Upgame, right? But when I use Draw More Circles, if you go to the premium package, it's not that much, right? It's like the cost of 2 lessons, and you punch in all your data, and it actually tells you when you go to a golf course, I'm going to go play Augusta, and it tells you how to play the golf course. So it knows that Dominic carries his driver on average 265 and leaks 5 to the right every 20 shots. So it says you're playing this hole 8 times out of 10. If you hit driver, you'll score 4.1. If you hit forearm, you'll score 3.93. But if you do take it on and you hit this type of shot, then the chances are you might make a 3.83 average, but you might also bring a 5 into play. Like, that's what's out there now. That's what's telling. Isn't it ridiculous? And it's telling you how to play the golf course. Oh, it's mind blowing. Hey, actually, I was going to talk to this at the start. What's it? What's it look like when you're working with tour players through online coaching? So we have lots of coaches that listen to this, and lots of good players listen to this. They always reach out and say nice things, which is great. We love to hear that feedback on the podcast. But what's it like working with online players, and what does it look differently to maybe working with a recreational golfer? I know you work with a lot of tour people through online.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I guess for me, it's communication's everything, isn't it, in coaching golf? So for me, it's the more I understand that player, their technique, their tendencies within every aspect of the game, whether it's their putting stroke or their drive and miss, and a good example with Karis this week. She's played in the World Invitational in Northern Ireland. Had a phone call from her last night. There's messages every day, every second day. How's prep going? This is happening. That's happening. She's struggling a little bit with some putter alignment, so she's sending videos through. So it's just constant communication. We use WhatsApp. I use WhatsApp with most of my players, a little bit through Skillest with some video sharing and things. But for me, it's I do a lot of voice messages. I'm not the fastest type, mate. I'm too old.
Yeah,
so
same.
yeah, voice messages are great. Videos are shared back and forth, but often it's when you get in the range tomorrow, give me a call. Let's do a FaceTime. Let's have a chat. Herbie's caddy's holding the video. We can often get two cameras going. One front on, one back. We'll have Pewey's caddy call into the chat. So we've got 3 people on the chat. So one's holding the camera front on, one down the line, and Herbie's got his earphones in. I'm chatting to him, and I'm able to watch each swing from front on down the line. And I'm constantly talking to him about the movements that he's making. So it's developing all the time. I'm learning and getting better at how that looks in that space and how it looks with different players, because with different players, it does look quite different in the way we communicate, how technical we are going into a tournament on the Wednesday compared to other people where it's not as technical, it's more performance mode. So every player is slightly different in that space and how we communicate. But I think, my advice or how I tend to do it is really look at how the player responds that you're working with, what their needs are. Sometimes you've just got to be real. Like with Karis last night, I was pretty hard. Like, Karis, come on, you know how to putt. We're not trying to find a magic secret now. This is that you're a great putter. Go back to those fundamentals. Everything we talked about earlier. Get that right. Get external, hold a putt. And she's like, yeah, I needed to hear that. Because they're going off on different tangents and so many people, so many players tend to do that. They turn up and they want to find the secret to how they're going to putt well, especially recreational golfers, crikey, that they do that throughout a round. They're changing their hand position, the ball position, these things all the way through a round. They do it for the next two holes and they don't hold a putt. Oh, that didn't work to have the ball position up there. Let's try and get the ball here or stand a little bit closer. I mean, it's just golf doesn't work that way. So let's go back to the basics.
I tell you, when you talk then about, and people listening to this recreational golfer as well, when you mentioned there around, a little bit of self-doubt there with Karis not being able to hit the putt right, and sometimes you just got to snap them into gear. I read this yesterday from Michael Kim, plays on the PGA Tour. Right? It's a bit of a statement. He says, goes for a few sentences. Says, lots of amateurs think that PGA Tour pros hit the ball with supreme confidence and conviction. I can tell you that that's not true at all. Our skills might be different, but our brains work the same way. Our brain will always try to look for worst case scenarios because that's the best way for survival back in the hunter-gatherer days. And he says, pros. In our minds, we have so much on the line. It's way easier for the brain and body to get into the sympathetic survival mode. So when the way to get out of that is to breathe better, stay in the present as much as possible, and don't worry about the possibilities that your brain wants to worry about. He said it's easier said than done, obviously. So our brain always takes us to worst case scenario, right? And I thought, man, but it's interesting that he said that to make that clear to the amateur golfer. We go through the same fucking thinking as you do. We're just a little bit better and on a bigger stage and we've got more money on the line. I thought, man, that's really cool. So I took a screenshot of that. Maybe I'll text it to you now so you can send it to Karis, maybe.
Yeah, please do. I like that.
But,
I mean, and look, Karis has come a long way in that space. I remember I was in Hawaii with her early in the year, and first 2 rounds, she was playing nicely. She finished 19th that week, but there's a lot of drives where there was water like left or water right, and she just kept missing it like on the other side in the traps and making bogeys, and she just couldn't. She wasn't getting on that tee box and just hitting the shot where she needed to hit it with the freedom of actually. I said to her, like, hey, mate, you're allowed to hit it in the water. In fact, I want you to hit it in the water 1 in 15 shots, because it actually means you're trying to hit the shot you need to hit. Mm-hmm. I'm sick of you not hitting it in the water, but hitting it left, if the water's right, into the bunker, and we make bogey anyway. Like, allow yourself to fail. It's okay. And I think as a recreational golfer, how many times, they get up and it's like water down the left and they just blaze it right all day, every day. It's just never going in the water. And it's like, it's okay. Pick your target down the right side, commit to that, put your big boy pants on, and let's have a crack at it. Now, it's okay if you do that and you don't execute it well and it goes in the water. That's okay. We can accept that. But you're giving yourself the best opportunity to actually hit the shot you need to hit.
Yeah.
And, it's the same with putting, isn't it? It's what I spoke about with Karis last night. It's okay. You just do your best job at what you've got to do with that 6-foot putt. It either goes in if it doesn't, and if you tick every box and commit to everything you need to do to hold that 6-foot putt and it misses, you can walk away happy and go, well, I did everything I can. And that's all we can do in golf.
What about, were you coaching her when she won the New South Wales Open?
Mimoka?
Oh, was it Mimoka that won New South Wales Open? Sorry.
Mimoka, New South Wales Open, yeah. In that playoff.
Were you coaching her then?
Yes, yeah.
That's awesome.
Pretty cool.
How good's that?
Yeah.
That's New South Wales Open. What's it like when you got a player on the big stage and they're in the hunt like that, and you just kind of just refreshing the screen every 5 seconds, or what are you doing?
Yeah, it's not fun. It's the one part of coaching I don't love. I don't know if I'd rather be there or not. It's like Herbie when he won in Bermuda.
You were there.
I was there, obviously there. I mean, that was you can't watch. But in saying that, I've got a lot better over the years because he's in that position because he's playing well.
Yes.
It's harder when they're on a cut line because they're on a cut line because they're not playing well. They're not playing their best golf.
Interesting.
So cut lines are more of a challenge because they're not in control of their game as much as if they're at the pointy end of a tournament where, we know winning's hard, and we know that we're not going to win them all when we're in the top 3, with 3 holes to play. But what we do know, I feel, is that they're in control of their game. They're playing really nicely. And Mimoka, New South Wales Open, whether she wins or doesn't win, it's you're really pleased and proud of what they've done that week because they're in control of the game. They're playing great golf. They're achieving what we practice, what we've worked so hard to achieve, whether it's first or second or third. That's to me, it's the process of what they've done that week. It's not whether they finish first, second, or third. And a lot. You probably hear this too, mate. You have students sort of say, "Oh, I want to perform for you." You put so much. You've travelled over here in the world. I'm like, I don't care about your result. I don't care if you finish first, 5th, 10th, miss the cut. If you're doing all the right things, if you're ticking the boxes, I'm pleased. I'm proud of your efforts. I'm proud of what you've done, and don't feel pressure for me, particularly the young juniors that we work with, Toby. You probably find that a bit too. It's like, mate, you just go about doing everything I'm asking of you to do, and I'm the happiest coach in the world.
Yeah, you hear that. You can feel it on the tee when they just go, I just wanted to show you a good shot. I've been hitting it so good. I'm like, it's all right, dude. It's all right. Like, we can see that you're doing it. I can see you doing it. The timing's just not there. But what about the, I'm going to ask you one more question after this, and then we'll finish up. You've been great with your time. The LPGA Tour, right, which Karis plays on, right, which is just the cream of the crop, right? Like, that's as good as the women get, and she's out there competing with those. I don't know if you can probably answer this, but how much is it a big jump from the Ladies European Tour to the LPGA Tour in a nice way, putting it?
Yeah, it is. I think the top 20, 25 on the Ladies European Tour are able, good enough to play and make a career on the LPGA Tour.
Okay.
I think the depth of the LPGA Tour is a lot stronger. Like the 100th, and Karis is like 98 on the CME at the moment. She's just inside the top 100, 2/3 of the way through the year. If she was on the Ladies European Tour, she'd be top 20.
Okay.
So the depth is really strong on the LPGA Tour.
Yeah.
On the Ladies European Tour, I think the top 20, 25, absolutely, they can compete on the LPGA Tour. And when I say compete, top 10, do really well. Then you start going, Momoka's, I think, 70th on the order of merit at the moment. Probably not ready. We've actually decided that she's not going to go to LPGA Tour School at the end of this year. I think she's got some work to do to get in that top 25 next year would be the goal. And then if she can do that, then she's probably able and ready to go onto the LPGA Tour. So I think the depth on the Ladies European Tour is probably not as strong, as say the LPGA Tour. But that's relative to, as you said, the LPGA Tour is by far the biggest, best, strongest tour in the world on the ladies game.
Yeah, it's so good. And we were even talking before this about just, I got emotional last night watching the start of the Matildas kind of come out, and it's not even so much about them playing. It's just about, the Matildas being the Australian football team or soccer team, wherever you are. And I was saying to Dom that I think it's the biggest supported team in Australian history. Now, people might argue that, but I think there was a lot of people on the back of the Matildas last night, and I know my wife doesn't give two craps about the Australian cricket team, but, everyone in my street cared about the Matildas last night, and it's just so great to see that the women's game is just, women's sport is coming along so far. Like, how good is it?
Yeah, it's awesome. And look, and even on the LPGA Tour, it's, and you talk to the girls out there, especially of what's happened on the men's tour over the last few years with Liv and the money on the men's side of the game and the exposure. And a lot of the girls are pretty frustrated by the fact that it hasn't happened on their side. And, I think it will. It's only time. The girls' product, they're so good to watch. They're amazing, mate. They're the best in the world. And I think it's happening in so many sports around the world that we're watching women's sport more. We're acknowledging and understanding and appreciating just how good they are. And as you said, the Matildas the last couple of weeks has just been so phenomenal to watch.
Crazy.
And mate, how good were they? They're so good. They're world class. That Sam Kerr, that goal last night. I mean, just so good to watch. And, the same on the LPGA Tour. I love standing on the range watching, Nelly Corder hit golf balls and, Lynn Grant and some of the, Charlie Hull. Yeah. They're so good to watch. And, I think, and I've said to a while, we talk, especially when I'm out there on the LPGA Tour, what can we do? What can the LPGA Tour do to, make it more watchable, get it to rate better? I think one of the things is it goes up against the men's PGA Tour.
Yeah.
They play Thursday to Sunday, and most of us, we're going to watch the men's PGA Tour more so than the ladies' LPGA Tour if it's on at the same time.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I don't know how we try and, have the ladies play at a different time or earlier in the week or
Like
something.
Monday to Thursday or something.
Yeah, I just think if people watched it, they'd go, "Wow, this is awesome! Like, let's watch this." But I think we just don't watch it enough because we want to watch Rory. We want to watch, the men because they're phenomenal, as you know.
There's so much choice too, mate. Like of just everything to watch these days. Like everything. Like you can just, mate. I'll log into KO, mate. I can, mate. They've. Like there's everything's on there now. Like you can watch darts from like the local championship down the street on the KO now. Like it's insane what's on to watch online these days.
But it's also, mate, we would have 5 streaming services in this house. Like,
Yes.
there's Binge, Dan, there's Netflix. There's just so much to watch. So, yeah, sports sort of, you've got your KO, but that's one of like 5 options. And then when you switch KO on, are we going to watch the AFL? Like this, as you say, there's 8 sports that we love watching.
I was talking to my friends the other day about this, about our kids, right? When we were a kid, you wouldn't have much to watch on TV when you were young as well. Like, but I was, even in my day, was like you got to watch a few cartoons on Channel 10 of an afternoon that came on one after each other. There's no choice. What was on, what was on. Now you can turn on, like you say, binge Netflix, Disney, and there is literally 10,000 episodes of something that my kids can watch. Now that is too much choice. It's too much choice. It's crazy what's going on out there.
You don't want to hear about my childhood, mate. Yeah, there was three stations, and one of them is in black and white, and you can watch it because there was nothing on.
I know. And now,
so much.
I know. I spend half the time looking for what I want to watch. Then I spend more time looking for what I want to watch than I do actually watching something these days. Hey, tell me one last question, right? If you were to play, and you can take your time right with this one here, but your favourite 4-ball, did you answer this last time? If you were to play, tell me who they are. I told you last time. They can't be non-golfers though. They're non-golfers. Tell me.
Oh, non-golfers?
Non-golfers. And I've got
Jim Jeffries. I don't know if he plays golf.
Yes, but he's a funny bastard.
He cracks me up.
He's brutal.
I love talking about what I watch. We watch a lot of, and when I'm out with Momoka and Karis and on tour, like the Caddies, we Netflix is on. Mm-hmm. We go to the Jim Jeffries, the Jimmy Carrs. Well, like we watch all the comedy skits.
Yeah.
Because it's a good switch off from golf, and God, like Jimmy Carr makes me laugh. Okay. Sean Locke, rest in peace. He's not with us anymore. From 8 out of 10, like he cracks me up. Some of the stuff. So yeah, I'd be saying like some comedians, because how much fun would you have?
Oh mate, and you know what? Majority of people say this too. Like that's how much they love hearing the comedians, but a lot of comedians are a bit dark too, right? So they're not really as happy as what they kind of are on stage. So, but tell me, do you like Carl Barron? Do you find him funny?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Sam Pang would be another one. Like I find him very funny.
Yeah.
Those guys. I watch a lot of that stuff. They make me laugh, and we don't. There's nothing better than laughing, mate. Yeah. Like you said at the start. I'm in a good place. I'm really happy, and I love laughing. I just, whether it's with my friends or if I'm going to watch something, I love having a good laugh. It's just makes feels so good.
Another question. When you've walked past the range and apart from Lucas or any of your players, watch someone hit a golf ball, who stopped you in your tracks the most?
Good question. Rose Zhang. So
wow.
Boulders so KPMG. We go up on the range Monday or Tuesday, I can't remember. Might have been Monday, and there was like 4 girls there, and here's Roseanne sitting there. So I was on the bag with Karis that week, so I've just put the bag right next to it. I'm like, I'm using this opportunity. I want to see this girl. Like, I want to see how good she is. So then Karis is like hitting balls, and she's looking at me, and she's going like, she's even come over and goes, "Who are you here for? Like, what are you watching?" I'm like, I'm watching her.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see what she does, how she hits it. Like, but I'm doing that for you, Karis, because I'm learning so much watching Roseanne hit golf balls.
Yeah.
So that was a really interesting half hour to stand there, with a girl who's just come onto the ladies' game with such, she's incredible. So that was really cool. On the men's side, I love watching Tommy Fleetwood.
Yep.
He's just such a great dude too now. I've got to know him really well, and we'll sit there and have a good chat. And his caddy, they're two of the nicest guys out there, and I've been lucky enough to spend a lot of time with them. But Tommy, I love the way he swings it with his irons. He's got to be one of the best iron players I've ever seen in the world.
I know that you love Tommy. I've had a friend
very
say that.
deliberate in the way he does things. Yeah, it's like, as I said, go back to the fundamentals, path, face to path. It's just so neutral, so good. His dispersion's just so tight. His poor shot with an iron is just so good still, and that's his secret to why he's as good as he is.
Good to see him win, but it'd be good to see him get a win on the PGA too. Nearly won in the Canadian Open. I was actually watching that live.
It will happen. I think his putting's a bit streaky. Was at the third round of the Open, and he was in the lead there, and just left so many putts short, and just talking about tempo earlier. He just wasn't getting through it with any acceleration, and I just think that's probably his weak link sometimes. He can have some really good putting days too. So he's a bit of a streaky putter, but if he can string out, I think, 4 rounds of really good putting, he can win a major. We know that. He's put himself in contention in numerous majors over the last 5 years. He's a bit of a big-time player. He loves majors, and he'll win.
And it's interesting when I see someone, back in the day when we saw someone with a broomstick putter, there came some mental scarring with their putting. You don't grab a broomstick putter if you're not putting well, right? So if you're putting well, you don't grab a broomstick putter. And when you see someone holding the putter with a claw grip, something's happened, right? There's been some issues there prior. I don't think people grab a claw grip and go, "Oh, this feels good. I'm going to go this way."
Don't know with Tommy. I've never really spoken. I know he works with Phil Kenyon,
world's best putting coach.
I think Phil gets a few of his players onto claw.
Interesting.
For not that they're scarred. I don't know.
Interesting.
Should speak to Phil about that one day.
Mate, he's the man, right? I've listened to a lot of his putting stuff when he gets on a podcast too. It's very interesting the way that he does approach things. I think it comes from a very quantified situation, like Dr. Sasha McKenzie as well, like in environments and stuff when they do testing to make sure. I don't think it's as willy-nilly as try this, try that. I think it's pretty well.
Very clever. Very clever, man. Very clever.
Hey, you've been good, Dom. Hey, can people still get you on Skillest? People come get an online lesson with you?
Yeah, still on Skillest. Instagram, mate, Dom Az Golf.
It'd be good if you got back online and started posting, mate.
I don't do much. No, I don't do much. I don't have time. It's the best thing I did was pretty much get it. I share a lot of stuff.
I understand.
The thing people put me into, I share it. But I want to live my life not through social media. I just want to get out and actually, do it.
Mate.
Not worry about, have I captured this? Have I taken a photo of what I'm doing today? I don't really care whether people know that I'm at the US Open at LA Country Club with Herbie that week. I'm there. I'm living my best life doing that, and don't need to share that with the world. But maybe one day. Who knows?
Understand, and I go through those stages too. I actually don't have the Instagram app on my main phone, and it just sits on my reserve phone. And I understand what you mean, and the content creation and all this stuff, and when you're thinking about it, it gives you the shits too. It's like, oh, was that good for Instagram? Oh God, it's a pain in the ass, right?
We've been there. I've talked to you about it.
I know, and I think about it all the time. Hey, but you've been good with your time, mate. And so people can get you on the Skillest app. I know that you do your in-person coaching a lot different to how not normal people, but away from the norm. You do lots of monthly program type of stuff up there at the sunny coast.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And look, I'm actually, my website I haven't touched for 2 years, but we're actually going through that at the moment, trying to update that. So, Yeah, that's probably, and again, the reason I haven't done much on that for 2 years, I just, I'd rather put my time into, living my best life and working with my students and doing what I can. So, but yeah, I've got to get better at a little bit of this sort of space. But mate, well done on the podcast. I love listening to it. You're killing it. I wish I had the time, the patience, and the commitment to do what you've continually do, mate. How many? 31 episodes?
31. It does take some time, but the podcast I do like, Dom, is that we can. The reason why I like the podcast forum is I get to have lots of cool conversations, so I decided to start recording them, right, with guys like you. But also we can do them in our times, right? So I can do them at night or in the morning. I don't feel like I have to kind of write up a script and do a YouTube video. Like I just feel like sharing our stories through this medium is definitely my favorite thing to do. Way more fun than Instagram and stuff like that. Way more fun.
Nothing scripted today, mate. We spoke for what, 30 seconds, minute. Right, let's talk about this. And we've just off we go, have a chat. But I love it.
If people listening, everything is extremely unscripted. I probably have a couple of scripts with some people where I talk about a few things where people might have something they want to talk about. But yeah, this is just all off the cuff. I kind of sit down here, I give myself 10 minutes, I get out this notepad and I start writing some questions down, and that's it. But mate, thanks for coming on, mate. I really appreciate it. You've been good with your time.
Love it, mate. Cheers. Thank you.